This next speaker is somebody I know and love very much. He lives in my former stronghold of Portland. He's here to encourage you to choose boring tech. I feel very strongly about this topic, sir. So without further ado, Jason Lengstorf.
I gotta come clean with you. I'm up here living a double life. So, in my heart, I'm a tinkerer. I am a generalist, I'm a novelty seeker, and ultimately a collector of domain names for unfinished side projects. I love new tech. I've built my entire career on hanging out with people from the industry, learning from experts, and trying to goof around with whatever's the latest on the tech. But there's more to me than that. I contain multitudes. You can see me staring off thoughtfully. I am also a developer with 20 years in the industry. And I've been both a casualty and the cause of huge migrations, refactors, ambitious rewrites of large-scale production apps. And these were for services that were used by millions of people, sometimes developers, sometimes consumers. And I've lived through all the pain and the PagerDuty and the victory and success in what little measures it came with, that come along with that sort of thing. And so when I am in conversations today and I hear a developer start telling me that, oh, they could fix all their company's problems if they would just refactor into whatever the latest new thing is, I settle into a 10,000-yard stare and start to contemplate the sins of my past and try not to cry. Because inside of me, there are two wolves at battle. Right? We've all heard this one, right? The first wolf is fighting for excitement. It's fighting for the joy of building something new, of challenging myself to learn and exploring uncharted territory. And the other one is fighting for boredom, for the absolute joy of having nothing urgent to do. I want to be in charge of my own time and do whatever I please with it. And I used to feel like in this battle, I would have to choose a winner. I would either need to be somebody who loved tinkering and exploring and trying new things, or I would need to be somebody who let that go and chose this life of only doing boring things. But I'm starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, if I can build the right habits and instincts, I can feed both of these wolves and end up with a couple of floofy boy best friends instead. So I couldn't think of a good slide for this, so I'm just turning it off. I can only speak from my own experience, but from everything that I've built, shipped, retroed, celebrated, suffered through, I have landed on a general rule that has served me well, at least in the moments when I can follow my own advice, which is work projects, work being the operative term here, should be built on the most boring tech possible. Thank you, the end. So I want to spend my energy building things, not maintaining things. That is a very core tenet of who I am and what I believe in. And I am starting to believe very passionately that every minute I spend wrestling with my tech stack to get it to do the one thing it's supposed to do, which is serve a damn website, that's a minute I'm not spending doing something valuable. And so I've started to believe that boring is for builders, right? We choose boring tech because playing with tech is preventing us from building the things that we wanted to build. So what do I mean when I say boring? Because I don't mean boring as in like the mind-numbingly dull, like just waiting the day out. I mean boring like a light switch. A light switch is universally understood. It's predictable. People intuitively know how to use one. If you flip the switch, something happens. If you flip it the other way, the thing happens in reverse. That's pretty typical. You don't get a lot of surprises with a light switch. It is simple, it's predictable, and it's boring. Exciting, on the other hand, is something like, say, a self-driving car. It is new, it's desirable, it's the future, but it's unstandardized, and we're not quite sure how it works yet. And there's also that just teeny tiny, totally not a big deal, it really only happened out once, but it might just run over a kid. This is that kind of excitement that I don't want. I don't want to be the person working on self-driving cars and the news story breaks that, hey, it turns out our autopilot doesn't stop when a kid gets in front of the car. That's a page I never want. You know what I mean? So what I think a lot of people will say at this point, though, is a few of you I see are making intense eye contact, and I can read your minds, and you're saying, but I don't want to work on boring stuff. And I get it. I really do. Coding is as much an identity as it is a profession. I think of myself as the vanguard of new tech. I really like being somebody who's at the forefront of experimenting and learning and helping push the industry forward by understanding and trying to popularize some of these ideas. But the thing about that is that type of work is a hobby. So my tinkering is a hobby. My job is to build things that people find valuable and are hopefully willing to pay for. That's a job, right? So my hobby projects embrace chaos. They are all about excitement. I want to play, make a huge mess, things might break, most of it's complete garbage. I've overcomplicated, over-engineered absolutely everything, and I'm shipping pre-alpha software. I don't care. And this is how I learn, it's how I play, I love it. It brings me an absolutely huge amount of joy. And this chaos is fun for me for one very important reason, which is no one is depending on my hobby projects. If they go down, nobody cares. I move on with my day. Somebody's like, hey, that demo you built is broken. I'm like, okay, I'll get around to it eventually. But it's no dependencies. Nobody cares, right? So when we get to the work situation, things get a little more complicated. If we treat the code we write for our jobs like hobby projects, we're no longer introducing risk for just ourselves, right? Very real people, our teammates, our customers, they are depending on this software for their livelihoods. And if we overcomplicate it, if we introduce chaos into work software, they suffer, they get paged, they have to deal with these maintenance burdens and not being able to do things. The stakes are just much higher at work, and the consequences of getting this wrong are much more painful and expensive. So we just have to be more careful at work about how much excitement we really want to introduce. And this is where I'm going to make the sweeping statement that I imagine I'm going to have to fight with people about on Twitter. But that is, if we're prioritizing our own hobbyist interests over the needs of our customers and coworkers, we're no longer doing good work. And in fact, we're moving toward being actively harmful to our teams and to our companies. But of course, context matters. So let's take a moment to pause and reflect on the complexity required to make decisions as adults. Something that is fun in one context can be awful in another. It is really fun to go swimming when you're with your friends in a pool. It is really not fun to go swimming when your boat has been capsized in a storm, right? And something that's appropriate in one context can be a terrible idea in another. Dipping strawberries in chocolate, what a wonderful idea. Dipping sardines in chocolate is in fact a war crime. And I don't think, I'm not kidding, I think you go to jail for that. But tools are just tools. They're not good or bad. We have things that need to get done, and certain tools are better for certain tasks. There's no objective right or wrong with tools, they just do a job. So I always kind of find it funny and a little bit weird that people build full identities around tools, because to me, it feels a little bit like if you were to go hire a contractor and they showed up to a job for painting your house and they were like, sorry, sir, I won't be using a paintbrush, I'm a hammer guy. And I'm going to show you that hammers are objectively better, which will immediately become obvious if you'll just take a moment to review these benchmarks. So I think that exciting tech drives the developer zeitgeist. It's what we argue about online. We try to convince each other that some new approach is the only acceptable way to build software. And this discourse is kind of fun. One of these is mine. For a certain value of fun. But here's the thing. It's also responsible for wreaking absolute havoc on engineering teams. And in a lot of instances, it's actively preventing teams from building what the business actually needs. And it introduces chaos. And so what do I mean by chaos? Well, allow me to channel my inner 80s management consultant and present an acronym. Wait, what am I looking at now? Chaos, here we go. All right, chaos. So, chaos stands for complex. How many moving parts does it have? How many novel concepts is the team going to need to learn to use it? It's hazardous. How much of this tech is in beta or experimental? How often are new features shipping that require significant refactors to put into production? Is it aspirational? How much of this tech's value is proven? Are any real-world apps shipping this, or is most of what you're seeing out there proof of concept? It's opaque. Are there up-to-date docs? Are there any examples at all? Is there an ecosystem, or is using this tech going to put you into a place where you have to invent every single thing from scratch? And it's speculative. Are there teams who have actually shipped this, or are you in uncharted waters, right? And I don't care about this stuff when I'm trying for something fun. In fact, chaos is often the point in a hobby project, right? But if my whole team has to work on the app, chaos is almost never the ideal outcome. And boring, I think, gets stigmatized. But honestly, I don't want my job to be exciting. Surprises in tech stacks are rarely like balloons. You don't get cake, right? You usually get something way less fun like PagerDuty. And I personally would much rather be bored with my tech stack. Another acronym. So, balanced. We can make a balanced assessment of the tool based on real-world usage so that we can accurately assess the trade-offs of putting this tool into production. Obvious. Tech that lets us reuse existing knowledge, learn from extensive prior art, and deal with very few moving parts is a clear win. Reliable. Tech choices at work should be so dependable that we can deploy them and literally never think about them again unless we have to revisit that feature for something new. We want it to be established. It needs a robust ecosystem and a healthy community that will stay healthy once it's not trendy anymore. And finally, documented. And I don't just mean like great docs. I mean community articles, case studies, extensive discussions of the experiences and trade-offs of using this tech. And a tech stack meeting these criteria fades into the background. It lets the important stuff, which is building valuable features for the business, stay at the forefront. And I want the code at work to be utterly, unflinchingly, unapologetically boring. Because boring tech at work means that there are very few points of potential failure. Everyone on the team can identify and fix these issues because they've seen them a million times before. The PagerDuty exists, but we can't actually remember the last time somebody got paged because things just work. Trademark. I want different types of excitement. The types of excitement I want at work is I want the team to be excited when we ship that new feature and it works without issues. I want leadership to be excited when they see how quickly our team delivers. I want product to be excited when they see all the positive customer feedback about how our app is rock solid and does exactly what they expect it to do. And I want our customers to be excited that they don't have to worry about the problem our product solves because it just works. They put it into production and now it's there, it disappeared, and they're super happy about it. This kind of excitement is what makes work rewarding. It helps us avoid workout. We're delivering value to somebody. We're getting positive feedback. And that makes it feel good to build things. The inverse, where we spend a lot of effort and a lot of energy trying to get something to run, but because everything we're building is being built for the first time, it's constantly broken, constantly requiring churn. That's a recipe for burnout because we never actually get anything shipped, right? So all of those good kinds of excitement are much easier to achieve when your tech stack is boring. And so I have learned this lesson the hard way. I've been writing code for about 20 years now, I mentioned that earlier, and I've been an early adopter at work many times, and I've only not regretted it once. I shipped GraphQL at IBM, and I just saw a couple people's eyes. I saw the whites of everybody's eyes, like, GraphQL is the one thing you don't regret? And it was the right tool for the job. And when I shipped that, it was a massive undertaking. We rebuilt the tool. We were at the beginning. This was like right after GraphQL had gone mainstream, so Apollo was still in its nascent stages, and we were still figuring out how to make things like federation work. It didn't exist yet. So that was a huge amount of work, but the trade-off was that we got 30-something teams at IBM speaking to each other for maybe the first time in the company's history, and that was worth the pain, right? But it was a lot of pain. It just happened that the trade-offs netted out in the right direction. In every other instance, the downsides ended up far outweighing the technical wins. So what was I don't even know what I was just looking at. Was I showing like the wrong slide? I was showing a blank screen. Whatever. Okay, so let's talk about upsides and downsides, right? So the upsides of shipping exciting tech are, generally speaking, this is my personal experience. This is not an objectively true list, but it's fun playing with new tech. I love it when I get to ship something brand new. We got to overcome a small technical hurdle. There was a thing that we wanted to do, and it was easier with the new thing, so we shipped the new thing. And probably the biggest reason that I've done a lot of my most painful rewrites is because the code base was more pleasant to me because I wrote it after that. Maybe not the best idea in retrospect. The downsides, it was time consuming, it was very frustrating because we had to retrain the entire team. So I switched from building code to doing an internal PR tour where I had to hold meetings internally to retrain large teams on what the new thing was, why it was better than what they were doing before, why they had to use it now because management said so, and all the different things that they needed to understand, right? A lot of docs, a lot of kind of force-fed, you have to do this now, a lot of automated tooling that had to be built. It's a lot of work. And then, as we rolled it out, we discovered that all that bloat that we were so happy to get rid of was actually handling a lot of very important edge cases. So we started building those back in. A lot of extra maintenance because we had a lot of bespoke code. We were inventing stuff as we went. There weren't a lot of patterns, so a lot of this stuff was being built for the first time, and we were just vibing with it, you know? We didn't have something that we could model after. So it was, as you can imagine, a terrifying mess. And it added this really bad information bottleneck because me and maybe 2 or 3 people in the company became the only ones who understood it well enough to answer questions. And I don't know if you've ever been an information bottleneck at a company over 30 or 40 people, but it sucks. You get a lot of phone calls at weird times a day. But I've been talking a lot about this, and what I feel like I sound like I'm saying maybe is like never adopt any new tech ever, and that's absolutely not what I'm saying. What I want to clarify that I mean balance here. Like, it needs to be a balanced decision to adopt something new, right? Because a monstrous code base that has been around for decades and no one understands, and the only way that people can work on it is by appending only to whatever the longest file in the code base is, that's just as big of an impediment to shipping as like something trendy that nobody understands. But you've got the same general problem, which is people aren't quite sure how to interact with the code base. So the goal is to find the right blend of tech that actually allows you to ship the things that your customers want. Again, going back to the reason that we get a paycheck. We have to ship valuable things that somebody wants and is hopefully willing to pay for. We should be in a tech situation that allows us to spend most, if not all, of our time building those features. If we're spending even half of our time maintaining the stack to let us build features, something smells weird in the code base, right? So what I'm asking is not don't adopt new tech. What I'm asking is not only adopt things that I have said are okay. What I'm asking for is for everyone to do a thorough risk assessment before you introduce new software. You need to make sure that the new technology solves the problems that you need it to solve and doesn't introduce enough trade-offs that it negates the value of doing this migration. And remember, when you're talking about trade-offs, that the trade-offs of new code tend to far outreach the code itself, because you've got to ask a lot of questions. How much retraining is required? What infrastructure changes are required, and who's going to manage that? Do you have to go get a DevOps team to provision a bunch of new stuff and learn how it works so that you can ship your new thing? Who gets paged when this goes down? And who gets paged for which piece of it when it goes down? Do you know all those pieces and who owns each one of them? Because if you don't, it's going to be you. Who maintains this? Is it you specifically? Because a lot of times when I'm building something for fun, the thing that makes it really not fun is when I have to maintain it instead of doing other fun things. And so introducing something critical using a toy that I didn't want to maintain, that I'm now the only person who can maintain, is a great way to make both no time for hobbies, because all I'm doing is stuff that I don't enjoy at work because I tried to play at work, right? When you're assessing it, like, is anybody using this tool that's not a hype lord? And when I say hype lord, I can say that because I am one. Will this solve a real-world problem, or are you kicking the can down the road? Are you doing this as a way to procrastinate tackling the actually hard, valuable problems that your customers want you to solve? And I've seen this a lot where somebody says, well, if we just refactor, we'll be able to build this thing that we've been putting off for months or years. And then you do the refactor, and now you're in exactly the same place, but it's 6 or 12 months later, and you're saying, well, we didn't quite get what we wanted out of that migration, so if we just refactor to this new thing, then we'll be able to build that feature, right? So all of that is to say, you do not want to get stuck holding the bag with this new tech. You want to make sure that you're not betting on something that is too trendy to be valuable in the long term. You want to make sure that you're not betting on something that's going to put you in this situation where what you thought you were doing was having fun and what you were actually doing was signing up for the rest of your career being full of chores that you didn't want to do. And for that reason, I want my tech stack at work to be boring so that I can choose excitement and have enough free time to actually enjoy it. Because I want to spend my time creating things that people want, not wrestling tech details that they won't notice. And I want to spend my energy messing around with new ideas and not cleaning up messes. I want to spend my weekends cooking over fires, not putting out fires. And I want the same for you, friends. So please, let's make our tech choices at work boring together. And let's make sure that we leave plenty of time for ourselves and our teammates to go have excitement on their own terms. Thank you very much.